Hi, I'm Francina,
I'm Jackie.
and welcome to the Rest, Love, and Justice podcast.
This podcast is an inquiry into whether rest and love and justice can produce transformative social change. The dominant narrative is this overwork and this glorification of it, especially in the justice space. And here, we're going to question that notion.
Come sit with us as we meet our collective humanity and share stories around rest, love, and justice. It is our hope to create a shift that enables us to recognize that racial justice work is a human issue. It affects us all.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Rest, Love, and Justice podcast. I'm here with
Francina.
And I'm Jackie, and it's nice to have you back for this episode. Today, we're going to talk about this quote that we saw on Instagram. And it's really simple. It's activism without love and joy is not sustainable. And this just really struck me, how the work that we're doing, this podcast, our other work, Francina, how we can incorporate love and joy into that. And actually, it's a must. It's a have to. And even before we started recording this, we were dancing, we were laughing. We know that when the work gets too serious, then it's not going to be sustainable and we're not doing it right. So I just wanted to bring that into the conversation today as inspiration if people haven't seen that quote, and also talk about the ways that we do that in our work.
Yeah. Who was the quote by?
Oh, Siobhan Elizabeth. Thank you.
Awesome.
I forgot to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I really love that because I feel like love and joy is, for me, the wellspring of possibility. And it's really hard to do work that requires so much hope. It's impossible to do it if it's not coming from a spring that will continue to nourish. And love and joy are those places for me. We have to be able to laugh. We have to be able to cry also. We have to be able to hold all of those emotions together and make room for what needs to show up in order for this work to be sustainable. And I think that there's so much attention right now where there's a lot of drudgery, I feel like, and people just feel like you have to kind of bootstrap in and grind and, fighting for liberation, which, yes, there is. But I think about, I just came back from Jamaica and I got to go to Bob Marley's house, and that was, a life-changing experience. And to look at his pictures and see the joy that erupted from him, even though he was singing about things that was struggle, right? And the way that he moved in the world with love. Even his song, One Love, One Heart, let's get together and be all right, right? That sustains the struggle. And, it was so meaningful to me to see pictures of him in Zimbabwe. In one of the pictures, it actually said that he said, Zimbabwe is my baby and I need to be there for its birth. And he performed at the independence of Zimbabwe in 1980. And for me, that was just look at how much love he had in the midst of struggle. And he apparently chartered his own plane at his cost to be there for the independence of my country, which was next level for me. That is coming forward for me as you speak that, that quote, that if it's not steeped in love, if it's not steeped in joy, then it is not sustainable, because then you burn out.
And that's, what we've seen with other partnerships, other corporate support, especially post the uprisings of 2020. And so I just love this way forward of joy and love. And I think as a white-bodied person too, I don't feel like I have so much privilege in the world. I don't feel like I can also have joy and love at times within the struggle against and for racial equity, but against white supremacy. But then I'm starting to allow that to happen, because I do think that is how we keep moving together, and still acknowledging my privilege, still being very serious about my commitment to racial equity, but also love and joy. These are human things that we all want to feel, and that knowing that will allow us to keep going for forever, for as long as we need to, until we, until we're there at racial equity. Yeah.
And I feel like when I think about love and joy, for me, I love hammocks. And love and joy for me I feel like they're the container that hold us when we need to step back and fall into the arms of love so that we can recharge to be able to show up with intention. I mean, that's the whole premise of our podcast, right? Well-rested people can show up in love for themselves. And when you can show up in love for yourself, you can show up in love for your community. And when you show up in love for your community, you can stand up for causes of justice, right? And so this is really the arc of what our podcast is about, and how you live that out intentionally is the key. How do you weave in moments of love, or not just weave in, but maybe sit back into the hammock, into the holding of love, right? What spaces are you building community in? And that's, I think, an important piece that people always overlook. We have people that have always been in our lives, but are we actively cultivating community that brings us together, right? It could just be as simple as inviting people over for a meal. That's building community. That's having a safe place to land, to let your guard down, to be held in love. I mean, in my life, and you know this, whenever we hanging out, there's music, right? And dance. And we did that, today before we began the podcast. It gives us a place to let our guard down, to let the energy that is negative or that's intense to move out of our bodies so that we can have room to emerge for justice in ways that are sustainable.
Absolutely. Yeah, and definitely coming from a rested place. I'm much more joyous or willing to just kind of laugh or dance or remember to put on music for me to then be in that joyous energy when I am rested, for sure. So kind of just keeping it up. And then also when I'm more joyous and have more a sense of love, giving and receiving love, then I do want to take care of myself too. So like you said, the whole arc of this podcast.
I'm even thinking about too, the nourishment that comes from food, good food. African culture is about feeding people, right? And, in my language, in Shona, which is, if I have not mentioned that, there is a saying that says, Kandiro kanenda kunuvakam, which is the plate that goes out full always comes back full, right? If you're nourishing, the nourishment comes back. And I think about it in this work specifically as you are listening to this podcast and thinking about, how do I build community? It is as simple as feeding others. It's as simple as creating community around food, right? And learning about the people in the community and learning about how can we rest together so that we can show up for the causes that are needed for us to show up for, right? This whole situation, all the racial justice stuff that we're facing in this country, the opposition, the fights, all of that stuff is not going to change by hoping that someone is going to do something about it. It's going to change by us showing up every day with intention, a little bit at a time, and deciding that we're going to keep showing up for it, right? And we're going to keep showing up for it in ways that sustain us.
Yeah, ourselves, our relationships, and the projects that we're working on. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you to Siobhan Elizabeth for that amazing quote. It's really touched me. It's been a guiding light for us in our work too, this podcast and our other work. And so I'm grateful for the passing on of that wisdom and that we're able to receive that. Yeah. And so hoping that that's supportive for our community as well.
Yeah. We need to plan our camping trip.
Yes, we do need to
take
our
That's a joy piece trip for me, right? Okay. To just go out and be in nature and, and whatever that is for you, right? There is no right or wrong way to embrace joy and to fall into love.
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Well, thank you so much. That's a wrap for today. Thanks for joining us, and peace and love.
Peace and love.
And that is our show for this week. This episode was produced by The City Music. As for me, I'm Jackie Gao, and thanks to my co-host, Francina Call.
May you move through this week embodying rest, love, and justice in ways that are meaningful to you and your community. Thanks for joining us today. Peace and love.